the television courtroom had witnessed arrogance before, but nothing quite like what happened that day. Not from a teenager, not from someone barely 19 years old, and certainly not from the son of a man whose enormous wealth had taught his family that almost every problem could be solved with money, lawyers, or influence. The moment Ethan Cole walked through the courtroom doors, the atmosphere changed. The audience noticed it first, then the officers. Even the camera crew seemed to sense that something was different about this young man. Ethan didn't look nervous. He didn't look uncomfortable. He didn't even look interested in being there. He walked into the courtroom, while staring down at an expensive titanium smartphone, chewing gum slowly, as if he were waiting for someone to finish a boring meeting, so he could return to his real life. His designer sneakers made soft squeaking sounds against the polished floor, but Ethan didn't seem to care. He didn't acknowledge the bailiff. He didn't look at the plaintiff. He didn't even bother to look toward Judge Judy. He simply walked to the defendant's table, dropped into his chair, crossed one leg over the other, and continued scrolling through his phone. The case itself seemed straightforward. Ethan was accused of parking illegally in a handicapped space outside a grocery store, damaging another driver's bumper while leaving, refusing to pay for the damage, and then disrespecting Officer Ramirez when the officer arrived to investigate. The plaintiff was Lauren Hayes, a woman who relied on a mobility device and claimed Ethan's vehicle had blocked the access ramp she needed to use. Officer Ramirez had written a detailed report about the incident. On paper, it was a simple dispute, but what happened inside the courtroom would turn the case into something much bigger. Judge Judy looked toward Ethan and spoke calmly. "Mr. Cole, hand me the citation, please." It was an ordinary request. There was nothing aggressive about it, nothing complicated. But Ethan didn't move. He kept looking at his phone for several seconds before slowly lifting his eyes toward the judge. For the first time, he actually acknowledged that she was there. But there was no fear in his expression. There was no respect either. Instead, there was a small, almost amused smile, the kind of expression worn by someone who believed he was being asked to cooperate with a person who had no real power over him. Then Ethan picked up the citation between two fingers. The entire courtroom watched. Everyone expected him to hand it over. Instead, Ethan flicked the paper across the desk. The folded citation slid across the polished surface and stopped only inches from Judge Judy's robe. The courtroom gasped. Lauren Hayes immediately covered her mouth. Officer Ramirez stiffened. Several people in the audience leaned forward in disbelief. Even the camera crew seemed to freeze for a second. Ethan, however, simply leaned back in his chair and stretched his arms behind his head. He smirked. "There. Happy?" he said. No one answered. Ethan glanced around and seemed confused by everyone's reaction. Then he added, loud enough for everyone to hear, "My dad pays more in taxes in a minute than most people make in a year. Just sign whatever you need to sign so I can leave. I have lunch reservations." The room went silent. It was the kind of silence that felt heavier than shouting. Judge Judy slowly looked down at the citation. Then she looked back at Ethan. Her expression had changed, but not in the way Ethan expected. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't visibly angry. She wasn't even moving much. She was simply calm, almost unnervingly calm. She picked up the citation slowly and looked at him. "Mr. Cole," she said in a low voice, "did you just throw this at me?" Ethan shrugged. Actually shrugged. "It's a piece of paper." A few people in the audience gasped again. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Can we just hurry this up? I have somewhere to be." Judge Judy inhaled slowly. She looked at him for several seconds. Then she gave him a simple command. "Stand up." Ethan rolled his eyes, but he obeyed. He stood with the lazy posture of someone who believed he was waiting for a valet to bring his car around. His hands rested loosely at his sides. He looked almost bored. But there was something Ethan didn't know. He didn't know that Judge Judy had already reviewed the information available in the case file. He didn't know that the folder sitting on her desk contained far more than the parking complaint that had brought him there. And he certainly didn't know that his arrogant behavior had just convinced her to look much more closely at the pattern behind his actions. Judge Judy stared at him. "How old are you, Mr. Cole?" "19, Ethan replied. "19, she repeated. "And in those 19 years how many times have you been cited for reckless behavior?" Ethan laughed. Not nervously, he actually laughed. I don't know. You don't know? No. I don't keep track of little things like that. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow. Who does? Ethan shrugged. My assistant probably. The audience reacted with disbelief. Judge Judy reached toward a thick folder on the bench. She placed one hand on it. This is your driving record. Ethan's smile changed slightly. It didn't disappear completely, but for the first time, there was a small crack in his confidence. Judge Judy opened the folder. 6 speeding warnings. She turned a page. 2 reckless driving citations. Another page. A hit-and-run complaint that was closed because of insufficient evidence. Another page. And a fire lane parking violation that was later withdrawn. The courtroom became silent. Ethan swallowed. Then he shrugged. My dad handled all that. Judge Judy immediately looked up. Handled? Yes, that's an interesting word. Ethan shifted slightly. None of it was serious. Judge Judy stared at him. You don't get to decide that. Ethan looked away. This case began with a parking violation, Mr. Cole. You knowingly parked in a handicapped space. Why? Ethan answered without hesitation. All the other spaces were full. Judge Judy paused. So you knew the space was reserved for people with disabilities? Yes, and you parked there anyway. I was only going to be there for 2 minutes. Lauren Hayes finally spoke from the plaintiff's table. It was not 2 minutes. I waited for at least 10. Ethan turned his head toward her. His expression immediately became irritated. Did I ask you to talk? The reaction from the courtroom was immediate. Shocked murmurs spread through the audience. Judge Judy's voice cut through the room. Mr. Cole, you will not speak to Miss Hayes that way again. Do I make myself clear? Ethan looked away. Whatever. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. Ethan said nothing. I asked you a question. Yes, Your Honor. Good. She turned another page. Now let's discuss what happened after you parked illegally. Ethan remained standing. Officer Ramirez approached you and asked you to provide identification. Ethan said nothing. Judge Judy looked down at the report. According to this report, you told Officer Ramirez that you didn't need to cooperate because your father had connections. Ethan immediately shook his head. I never said that. Judge Judy lifted the document. You said it. She looked toward Officer Ramirez, and Officer Ramirez has body camera footage of the interaction. Ethan's expression changed. There is? Yes. His confidence faded another degree. Judge Judy continued. According to the report, you also told the officer that your father would make the situation disappear before he finished his shift. Ethan's jaw tightened. I was angry. That doesn't make the statement untrue. Ethan didn't respond. Judge Judy turned another page, and apparently, this wasn't the first time you've treated law enforcement this way. Ethan looked up. What are you talking about? 3 months earlier, you were stopped during a traffic incident. Ethan's face became tense. You threw your driver's license toward a state trooper. That's not illegal. I didn't say it was. Judge Judy closed the folder slightly. I said it demonstrates your attitude. Ethan shook his head. This is ridiculous. Judge Judy looked directly at him. No, Mr. Cole. What's ridiculous is that you appear to believe your behavior is normal, because nobody has ever forced you to confront it. Ethan opened his mouth, but she raised her hand. I'm not finished. She opened the folder again. That traffic stop was dismissed. The citations disappeared. The complaint filed by the officer was later withdrawn. And according to the records available to this proceeding, your father made a significant charitable donation to a police youth program around the same time. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Are you accusing my father of bribing anyone? No, Judge Judy said calmly. I'm showing you a pattern. Your father has resources. You have repeatedly benefited from those resources. And every time consequences came close, something seemed to happen that made those consequences disappear. Ethan looked uncomfortable now. He sat down slowly. Judge Judy remained focused on him. This is a 19-year-old with a history of reckless behavior who has apparently learned that consequences are negotiable. Ethan shook his head. That's not fair. Judge Judy replied, fairness is exactly why we're here. She closed the folder. And today, Mr. Cole, accountability has arrived. Ethan's cocky posture had changed. His arms were no longer behind his head. His phone was sitting untouched on the table. His smirk was gone. Judge Judy watched him carefully. Do you know what entitlement looks like? Ethan hesitated. I don't know. It looks exactly like this. She gestured toward him. a young man who believes the rules don't apply to him because his father is wealthy. Ethan immediately became defensive. My father has nothing to do with this. Oh, but he does. Judge Judy reached for another document. This is a complaint filed by your former driving instructor. Ethan's head snapped upward. What complaint? The complaint where you allegedly told him that you didn't need to learn how to drive safely. Because if you crashed, your father could simply buy you another car. The audience reacted with disgust. Ethan shook his head. He twisted my words. Judge Judy remained calm. He filed the complaint after you nearly struck 2 pedestrians in a school parking lot. Ethan's voice rose. That wasn't serious. Judge Judy looked at him. You keep saying that? She paused. That's the problem. She read from the report. Student Ethan Cole accelerated through a crowded parking lot, nearly striking 2 pedestrians. When instructed to slow down, he responded that nobody there was important enough for him to worry about. The courtroom fell silent. Lauren Hayes shook her head. Officer Ramirez looked down at the table. Even the court reporter briefly paused. Judge Judy closed the report. You see, Mr. Cole, this isn't really about a parking space. Ethan looked at her. Then what is it about? It's about the way you treat people you believe have less power than you. Ethan didn't respond. Judge Judy continued. You treated Ms. Hayes as an inconvenience, you treated Officer Ramirez as if he were beneath you, and when I asked you for a citation, you threw it across my desk. She paused. Why? Ethan looked down. I don't know. Yes, you do. He remained silent. Because you believed nothing would happen to you. His eyes lowered. Judge Judy turned toward Lauren. Mrs. Hayes, tell me what happened after Mr. Cole parked his vehicle. Lauren took a deep breath. He parked directly in front of the access ramp. I needed to unload my walker, and I couldn't get through. I asked him politely to move his car. Judge Judy nodded. What did he do? Lauren's voice became emotional. He laughed. The courtroom was silent. Then he started recording me on his phone. Ethan looked away. He told his friends that he wanted to send them the video. Judge Judy turned toward Ethan. Is that true? Ethan hesitated. I was joking. Joking? Yes. You thought humiliating a disabled woman who was struggling to access a store was funny. Ethan rubbed his forehead. I didn't know she was disabled. Judge Judy's voice sharpened. You parked in a clearly marked handicapped space. Ethan said nothing. The sign was right in front of you. He lowered his eyes. I didn't think it mattered. Judge Judy stared at him for a long moment. You didn't think she mattered. Ethan swallowed. That is the problem. Tears began forming in his eyes. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She picked up another document. And now we have a letter from your father's legal representative. Ethan looked up. What does it say? Judge Judy read carefully. It requests that this matter be handled with sensitivity because of the family's public reputation. Ethan closed his eyes. His father had attempted to intervene. Judge Judy placed the letter on the bench. Your father may be able to buy expensive cars, he may be able to hire expensive lawyers, he may be able to settle disputes privately, but he cannot buy decency. Ethan's breathing became shallow. He cannot buy humility, and he cannot buy this courtroom. Ethan's shoulders dropped. Judge Judy folded her hands. Now let's discuss consequences. Ethan looked nervous. What do you think should happen when someone behaves recklessly, disrespects the law, humiliates another person, and shows no remorse? Ethan stared at the floor. I don't know, go ahead. He hesitated. A warning? A few people in the audience laughed in disbelief. Ethan looked embarrassed. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow. A warning? She shook her head slightly. After everything we've discussed, Ethan didn't answer. You have spent your entire life avoiding consequences. She leaned forward. Today, that ends. Ethan's eyes began to water. Judge Judy reached for another document. My producer contacted the grocery store. Ethan immediately looked up. Why? Because I wanted to know whether there was additional security footage. Ethan's face went pale. And there was. Judge Judy opened the document. The footage shows you laughing while Ms. Hayes struggled with her walker. Ethan shook his head. It shows you recording her. I didn't know they had cameras. Exactly. Judge Judy looked at him. You behaved that way because you believed nobody was watching. Ethan wiped his face. I was trying to impress my friends. Judge Judy shook her head. You weren't impressing them. She paused. You were revealing yourself. Ethan's lips trembled. Is this going to be on television? Judge Judy looked at him. Everything happening here is on television. Ethan sank into his chair. His hands began trembling. The arrogance was disappearing. The confidence was gone. The young man who had walked into the courtroom believing he was untouchable was now looking around as if he had suddenly realized there were consequences beyond the walls of his father's mansion. Then Judge Judy turned another page. "And now we need to talk about your father." Ethan froze. "Why?" "Because your father attempted to influence today's proceedings." Ethan's eyes widened. "What?" Judge Judy lifted the letter. "He asked that your case be handled discreetly because of the potential impact on your family's reputation." Ethan covered his face with both hands. "Oh my God." Judge Judy placed the letter on the desk. "Your father is worried about headlines. He's worried about investors. He's worried about the family's public image." She paused. "But none of those things matter more than your character." Ethan looked up with tears running down his cheeks. Judge Judy softened her voice slightly. "Mr. Cole, you've been taught a dangerous lesson your entire life." Ethan stared at her. "You've been taught that money can solve every problem. You've been taught that influence can erase mistakes, and you've been taught that consequences are for other people." Ethan slowly nodded. "But today, those lessons end." The courtroom was silent. Judge Judy continued. "Money does not make you better than anyone else. Your father's name does not make you more important than the people around you. And wealth does not give you permission to humiliate someone simply because you were inconvenienced." Ethan wiped his eyes. Judge Judy looked at him. "Stand up." Ethan slowly rose. His legs were trembling. "Look at me." He raised his eyes. For several seconds they stared at each other. Then Ethan's voice cracked. "Your Honor, I'm sorry." The courtroom became completely silent. It was the first apology Ethan had given that sounded genuine. Judge Judy didn't smile. "You're not sorry for what you did." Ethan's face fell. "You're sorry that you got caught." Ethan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Judge Judy continued. "You mocked a disabled woman. You used a handicapped parking space because you were inconvenienced. You disrespected an officer who was doing his job. And then, you came into my courtroom and threw your citation at me, as if I were beneath you." Ethan's shoulders sank. "All of this comes from one belief." She paused. "You believe you are untouchable." Ethan looked down. "But today, Mr. Cole, you are going to learn what the real world looks like." Judge Judy turned toward Lauren Hayes. "Miss Hayes, I am awarding you the damages supported by this case." Ethan nodded weakly. "I'll pay." Judge Judy looked at him. "You will be responsible for it." Ethan glanced toward his father. Judge Judy noticed. "No, don't look at your father." Ethan turned back. "Your father is not going to fix this." Ethan's mouth fell slightly open. "The judgment will be your responsibility." He swallowed. "You will learn what it means to earn the money required to repair the damage your actions caused." Ethan nodded slowly. Judge Judy continued. "Second, you will complete 120 hours of community service." Ethan's head snapped up. 120, yes, where? Judge Judy answered, "At a disability resource center." Ethan's face turned white. He shook his head. "No." Judge Judy's voice became firm. "We're not negotiating," she continued. "You will assist staff. You will help maintain the facility. You will learn about accessibility, and you will assist people who rely on mobility equipment." Tears rolled down Ethan's cheeks. He looked toward Lauren. For several seconds, he couldn't meet her eyes. Judge Judy continued. "Third, you will complete a safe driving program and any required evaluation. You will attend every session and complete every assignment." Ethan's voice cracked. "Your Honor, my father." Judge Judy immediately stopped him. "Your father is not on trial." Ethan lowered his head. "You are." The courtroom doors suddenly opened. Everyone turned. A tall man in an expensive dark suit walked into the courtroom. The audience immediately recognized him. Richard Cole, Ethan's father, had arrived. Gasps spread through the room. Richard walked toward the bench with the confidence of a man accustomed to having doors opened for him. "Your Honor," he said firmly. "I believe this has gone far enough." Judge Judy didn't stand. She didn't blink. She simply looked at him. "Sit down, Mr. Cole." The room went silent. Richard's jaw tightened. For perhaps the first time in his life, someone had spoken to him without fear. He slowly sat down. Ethan turned toward his father. "Dad." Richard looked at him. Ethan's face collapsed. "I'm in trouble." Richard stared at his son. The arrogance was gone. There was no smirk, no confidence, only tears. Judge Judy looked toward Richard. Your son didn't need another lawyer. Richard remained silent. He didn't need another expensive car. Silence. He didn't need another